Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Chamberlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And today I'm very excited to introduce you to a multi-award-winning TV medium, a paranormal investigator, presenter, broadcaster, speaker, and columnist. And yes, this is all one person. Coming to us from the Sherwood Forest, he says, in the United Kingdom, I'm very happy to say, Barrie John, welcome to We Don't Die Radio.
Oh, thank you so much, Sandra. It almost sounded there as though you was reading like a whole title of words out to me. It was so lovely. And yes, you are right. I mean, I live in the middle of Sherwood Forest, not actually in a tree. I live on a lovely estate in the middle of the forest. So as you can imagine, it's very earthy and very down-grounded here.
Wow. Well, that's great. Well, it's nice to talk to you. I know we have a mutual friend named Kaz Dukes, who was a guest on this show on episode 168, who is a dear friend of both of ours and set us up together for this fine day to talk. So I'm very grateful to her.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So Barrie, you are... I know I read the introduction about you, and sometimes when we hear all those titles, it's like, wow, is that who I am? But you have done an awful lot, and you've made such an impact in the world, actually. And so how does your story begin? Did young Barrie, was he interested in this sort of thing? Or, if you wouldn't mind sharing your story with us.
Yeah, I mean, it really is very moving when I hear it, because I suppose really I'm very humble, if you know what I mean. I don't see what I've done, and the only one thing I've ever wanted to do as a medium is go out there and help people get over situations and grieve. And for me, it started at a very young age, and I was lucky because my family were very much into the spiritual pathway. My mum was a medium, my grandmother was a medium, and it almost seemed to flow through the family line. So I remember as a child when I used to lay in bed or lay on the sofa, and I used to see things happening outside the windows, and almost as though people were giving me signs or symbols, to be honest. And it was it scary? Not really, no, because I think I always knew there was something greater that was looking after me, or there was a greater power there. And whenever we lost grandparents or close family members, I always seemed to know that they hadn't gone forever. They'd gone for that split moment, and within seconds they would come back. And at this time, I was probably only 5, 6, 7, so a young age for a child, and as I say, I remember seeing spirit outside the window, and they would wave at me almost to say, we're here, but it's not your time yet, or it's not right for you yet. And I suppose it just, as things started to advance as a child, I was very inquisitive. I wanted to know more. I got to hear about the family stories of physical mediumship, table levitation, apporting objects into a family circle, and it was lovely, and I really have a passion. I have a big-hearted passion for what not only I do, but what we all do, because we're all trying to prove the same thing. We're all trying to prove that life continues to exist when people have passed over. And I remember, it was probably when I was about 11, 12-ish when I thought, actually, I want to start playing around. I want to start doing things. And I started using tarot cards at that time and doing a few readings for like family members or for friends on the street where we used to live on the road. And I did them, people used to say, how do you know that? I used to go, well, the cards just tell me so, or I just know it. There's just something that I knew. So it was really, really very inquisitive. And my path from that sort of age just seemed to blossom and bloom, I suppose. I got into doing ghost hunts probably around the early sort of 1990s sort of era. And it just took me from one thing to another. I enjoyed doing them as a bit of, I suppose I'll call it fun to start off with. It was nice going into old haunted buildings and seeing what we could find, what we could detect and pick up. But not only for me, but also for other people that was with us. And, there was times that at that age, I would be a little bit sort of afraid of it and thinking, am I doing the right thing here? Is this the right path for me? Or is this the dark side, which people always talk to you about once you start getting into it, don't they? They're very much they're unsure really of what you're trying to achieve. And even now, I've still got some family members now, and they always say, oh, make sure you do it for the right reasons. And I go, I always have, and I always say, for me, my mediumship for me has to come from the heart, not the head. When I have an emotional tie to somebody who I'm reading as a client, a sitter, or even if I'm doing an event, it has to have an emotional tie, because I think once I've got that emotional link, spirit work with me a lot closer. And I always try to keep mediumship simple. When I teach people, when I train people on workshops, I keep it simple, because I think at times mediumship can be made almost overcomplicated at times. People tend to put too many rules and regulations on it for me, whereas at the end of the day, all we are is delivering a service, and that service is only as good as the spirit world and also the sitter or the client sat in front of us. And I think that's one thing we have to remember. And I've got to be honest, I've thoroughly enjoyed my pathway. I really have. And I've enjoyed over the years helping people, helping them get over situations, helping them deal with situations, and probably, the be all and end all, helping them grieve in situations, because people will come to me, they'll come to you, Sandra, they'll go to mediums, and they really just want somebody to talk to. They want to tell somebody, this is how I'm feeling at that moment in time. And I always say to them, until me as the medium, until I have experienced losing somebody and the loss of somebody, which I have very close to me, you can't actually relate to them. You can't actually link in with that energy, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I think one of the greatest lessons of being a medium and to be a medium is the experience of life's pathway. The good and the bad, the ups and the downs. We have to experience that. And that's what makes us the better medium that we are today. It helps us understand people's pain, understand their emotions, understand the happiness. Because, let's be honest, people don't always come to us when they're sad and down in the dumps. They come to us as well when they've got a happy time coming ahead, and they actually want to know, am I doing the right thing? Is this going to be the right thing for me? Is this the best thing for me? It's funny, isn't it? Because over the years, mediums, everybody seems to think we hold all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we do. I think what we hold is almost numerous routes or crossroads or roadways, whatever you wish to call it, that we almost try and direct people down a little bit. And we say, well, actually, if you go down that one, that's going to be a better road for you. And I don't like people coming to me and thinking that I'm going to suddenly solve all their issues in their life and put them on the right path and say, right, off you go, everything's going to be perfect. Because, you and I know that as soon as the sitter's left us, they could change the whole of that reading instantly within a second.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Now, I know I've probably gone a little bit all around the houses there with what I'm talking about. But I enjoy doing it. I love the feedback to people. I love it when people come to us and say, you made a difference to my life. And I think, that's the one thing I've always wanted to do, is make a difference to somebody's life.
Yes. I think that's the common denominator in everything I do also. And you never know how that's going to show up. And I'm sure you've had people that were really down, and you may not even know to the extent that they're grieving. And just one message can, change somebody's course of life.
That is so important. And I say this to people, sometimes as a medium, you don't need to give people a full reading. You don't need to sit with them for half an hour. Sometimes all people want to hear from you is, don't worry, things are going to get better. And it almost puts them on that positive route then, And I always say, when I'm talking to them, change has to come within. You have to want things to change in your life. You can't expect us as a total stranger and the spirit world to basically say, well, if you go this way, everything's going to be perfect for you, because you and I know that life will never be perfect. it always has the ups and downs again, and I think for me, it's nice when sometimes, somebody will go away from me, a client will leave, and then they'll send me an email the next day going, what you said, that's really what I wanted to hear, or what you said was, it didn't make sense at the time, but now I've thought about it, it totally makes sense to me. And I always say to people, we can never guarantee who's going to come through and talk. We can't block them out. We can't dictate that, you only get dad through because you don't want to talk to mum. Sometimes mum might want to come through for a reason. And people, it's interesting when you do readings to people, isn't it? And you'll say, I've got mum here. And they'll go, I don't want to talk to mum. And you'll go, but I can't get rid of her now because she's obviously here for a reason. Right. So we need to understand, what is she here for? And I watch this with people, and you almost see, a little bit, they start taking almost a step back in the mind, thinking, I don't know whether I want to hear this message now. And you think, well, what will be, will be. Spirit are here for a reason. And I get messages from certain family members of mine, and people who, number one, I probably wasn't close to, and number two, I don't really want him to have any involvement in the direction of my life now, but I accept that the spirit world are a greater source. I accept that they're here for that moment in time when we need them. And, it shouldn't really matter who that spirit person is. All that matters is what they're telling us, and is that what we need to hear at that moment in time? And I always say to people, the spirit world will tell you what you need to know, not what you want to know. And I think that's a really good sort of route to look at, isn't it?
It is. The people in the spirit world, our loved ones, are they all knowing, or are they just still there's some same selves that they might not have the best advice, or do they just come with us with love in their heart and want to help? You know what I'm asking? Like,
do you know? I think you've just said it in the latter part. They come to us because they've got love for us. And we always talk about unconditional love with spirit. Mm-hmm. When we're working, when we're sitting in the power, in the energy, we get enveloped in this unconditional love that the spirit world can only have for us. And I think a lot of the time, they're there because maybe we just need a little bit of comfort. Maybe we just need a little bit of guidance. Maybe we just need somebody to put their arms around us at that moment in time and say, actually, you know what, everything will be okay. And not only for us, also for the sitters, because, let's be honest, us as mediums, we also get communication. If they're talking to the sitter with a message, they're obviously going to give us a message in the background, and that could come from our parents, grandparents, aunties, uncles, siblings, people that we've lost over in time. And I think that's why it's so important not to put a boundary on it, not to put barriers on it, not to say, I only want this specific person. But, I've got to say from my experience, at times when you're feeling a little bit down in the dumps and you're not quite sure which route to take or which direction, or maybe things aren't going well in your life, they're always there. There's always that moment in time where you just want to say, what I'm going to do is just sit for 5 minutes because I need to connect. And whether that be connecting with your higher self, or whether that be connecting in an altered state and looking at a trance situation, or whether that be just sitting for spirit and saying, guys, I'm here. I'm a bit confused at the moment. What can you do? Tell me, just talk to me, just take me in your arms and comfort me. And I think we all need that at times, don't we? We all put on a brave face. Even mediums put on a brave face when all you need is a little bit of positive guidance.
Yeah. And that's something we can all do, is spend that 5 minutes. We don't have to go to a medium. We can, and I have talked to many guests, and that's something we should all practice, is spending a little bit of that time sitting.
Yeah. But certainly, and I think, it's interesting, isn't it? A lot of the answers that people are looking for, they already know them. It's already there. It's that gut feeling. It's that sensation inside that says to you, yes, that's right, or no, that's not right. But they still insist on coming to somebody for another view or another point of view. And I think, if we all sat there, even clients, sometimes if they just sat there and said, you know what, this just isn't right for me. This isn't the situation I should be in. So what can I do to change it? I think that makes a huge difference. And I'm a firm believer in, you know, like attracts like, you know, what we give out, we get back. You know, let's all be a little bit more positive, and let's think, actually, things are going to change in my life. You know, what I'm going through at this moment in time is just a moment in time. After that, things are going to be okay again. And I think that's what we should be looking at.
Oh, those are great words. And I often think to myself that the hardest times in my life that were not pleasant are the times that I've gotten the most growth, and they've put me on a different direction or introduced me to great people, or good things have come from it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. You know, I agree. It all goes back to what we were just saying that a couple of seconds ago, wasn't it? About taking 5 minutes out, almost just to weigh up your own life or weigh up your own situation. And, you know, to come out of that, to actually appreciate where you are at that moment in time, appreciate what you're going through is a lesson to learn, or a learning curve on your pathway, is a great sort of experience that people need to realize. And that's what I think I tend to look at now with life. I look at things as a lesson, and I think, okay, I'm in this situation. Why am I in this situation? What is going to come out of this that makes me realize that, you know, it was only something I needed to learn, or something I needed to pass on to people. And I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I even play the game when I'm really on it about something. It's like, well, Sandra, why would you have put yourself in this situation? What is there to learn? And it's like, it takes me out of, isn't that victim awful? Everybody's doing this to me. It's like, ooh, maybe there's something to learn. Gets me into the.
It is. And you know, funny thing is, when you sit down and look back, probably in 6 months' time or 12 months' time, you'll look back and go, that makes sense now. I understand why I went through that, because you might have somebody who comes to you as a client. You might have somebody who comes and asks your advice. And lo and behold, you can go, I've been through that. I know what that's all about. And this is what happened to me. And people look at you going, what, really? You understand me? And you go, yeah, I understand what you're going through. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people want, isn't it? They want to know that you understand them.
That's right. That's right. Barrie, I want to ask you a little bit about your mediumship. When your friends in the spirit world come to you, are you a visual person? Do you feel them? Could you just like walk us through when you do that connection? Like what you feel?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, you know, interestingly, I was talking to my group about this the other night, and my mediumship over the years, Sandra, has changed so much. I remember when I first started out doing demonstrations, you know, I used to sit for spirit before, and you say, oh yeah, you want the second person on the back row, you want the third one on the front, you want the second row in. And it was almost as though they used to almost help me to give the message to start off with. Mm-hmm. And over the years, obviously, either they've hardened me up or they've got very hard with me, something like that. Because now I look at it and I think, well, I've got no idea where I need to be when I start off a demonstration or a platform demonstration. And I just think, you need to help me here, guys. You need to tell me where I want to be. And I always remember, you know, when I started off, they would literally show themselves, they'd describe themselves to a T. They'd tell me everything about their life. Whereas once you start getting the experience, it's almost as though they expect you to do more of the work. They want you to dig a little bit more. They want you to ask the questions a little bit more. And I think for me now, you know, I get a lot of visual, a lot of clairvoyance. I get a lot of almost what I call clair knowing. You know, there's just something inside that I know, but I don't know where it comes from. You know, and the spirit world will change. You know, whoever I'm working with as the spirit or the communicator, they will change into how they want to work with me. And I just accept it now. You know, I don't put boundaries on it, and I don't say, I only work one way. This is the only way that I work. And I think, you know, my gatekeepers, my guides, you know, my organisers up there, you know, that I've worked with for many, many years. And I always say to them, you know, you just help me deliver what I need to deliver. You know, you help me to bring through the messages that are needed. And I think, okay, if that doesn't make sense, then I go back to my guides, you know, my gatekeepers, and I go, not really understanding the delivery of this message. What am I missing? Is this something I'm not listening to? Is this something that the communicator needs to tell me? And it's almost I use them as a bit of, can I say, a little bit of a middleman at times.
Yes.
It's almost as I go, my guide or my mum who tends to work with me a lot, and I go, doesn't make sense to me. You need to help me. Is this person struggling to communicate with me, or is it the fact that I'm not listening? And I think sometimes it's probably the latter. I think sometimes it's the fact that the spirit world are there giving you all this information and you're trying to deliver it so quickly that you often miss key points or you miss key bits, or sometimes we don't analyze it enough, if that makes sense. They'll give you something and you think, right, okay, am I trying to make too much out of this, or should I just accept what they're telling me? And I think the way that I always look at it and the way that I teach is it's not for us as the medium to understand the message. It's for us as the medium to pass the message on in whatever format Spirit give it to us, because it might not make sense to us as a means of delivery, but to the person or the client or the sitter in front of you, it might make 100%, and they might just want to hear one thing. It's interesting, Sandra, because I did a reading last night for a lady that I do know and I don't know, and I knew a few bits about her, and I actually brought her son through the reading, who died in quite a horrific accident. And I remember, when he started off, and I said, I've got to tell you this, and I said, he's laughing about it. I said, he's only coming in with one trainer on. One trainer. I said, that's all he's laughing at. He's got a bare foot. And she just looked at me and she says, how do you know that? And I said, because that's what he's shown me. She says, when we went to collect his belongings, they only gave us one trainer. And for me, it was almost like, oh, right. And when you get something and it almost stops you dead in your tracks a little bit, and you think, that was so specific.
Right.
That he kept showing me one trainer. And yet for me, I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. Why one trainer? What does that mean? And as soon as I said it, she knew. And I think that is a prime example of what we're given from the spirit world that shouldn't make sense to us, and probably does sound a little bit comical in a way. But for the sitter, that's all she needed to know, because she knew that was her son. And I didn't know that. I didn't know any of the circumstances. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't know what they'd found afterwards or anything. But it was weird things, even to the point he even gave me the name of the gentleman that had stopped after the accident and actually helped him.
Wow.
And she was like, she looked at me as if to say, you couldn't possibly know. And I couldn't, right, because I don't know that much detail. And I always say to people, if there's something that I know during the reading, I'll go, I know this, but I'm going to tell you what they're telling me, and I'll relay the message, but I'll do it as though, but actually Spirit had already, I was aware of this before Spirit told me. But it's those little things for me that really do mean a lot in terms of how we deliver our service, because it should be those unknowns that people look at you and you just know that that's all they wanted to hear. It goes back to what we were saying, and I listen to people, as they're developing, and I listen to mediums and they go, oh yes, I can sit and do a 2-hour reading. And I always say, for me, if I can't deliver everything within a reasonable amount of time, whether that be half an hour, whether it be 45 minutes, whatever, I always think, then Spirit haven't got anything else to say after that. It's almost as though you'd end up going into like a repetitive mode or repeating what you've already said.
Right.
And when I start off, when I work with people in my consultation room at home, I always obviously tell them how I'm going to work, and I'll say, right, I'm going to close my eyes. I said, as I close my eyes, I take myself into my altered state. I said, if you need to interrupt me at any time, you must interrupt me. You must, if you want to ask a question, you must ask it, because once I start working with Spirit, I'll just start talking to you and I'll just start giving you information. And I said, that information will flow until the Spirit decides that either they've said enough or actually the Spirit withdraws from me. and I think that is so important for people, because there is so much nowadays about mediums face reading people and watching
Yes.
people's body language, watching their emotions. And I prefer to, sit in my chair, I don't sit facing the client. I actually turn to one side and I look out the window and I just close my eyes. And until I come back round, I don't actually look at that person again. Even if the person's getting upset, the only thing I would say is, there's a tissue there, use it.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't come back round and check. One thing I would say is, do you want me to continue?
Right.
And obviously a lot of the time they'll say, yes, just continue. But I still won't open my eyes and look at the person. It's almost as though I've got a strong link with the spirit world. They're working with me. I'm just going to work with them. That's the way I'll do it.
Well, and when you do telephone readings, you don't have a person in front of you, so you can't look at them.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Because, some people will say to you, it's not possible to do a telephone reading. But, I have regular clients, well, not regular clients. I have clients from America. I have clients from the Middle East. I have clients at the moment in China and Japan. I have clients over in Europe, and it's not possible for me to meet them on a one-to-one basis. But, all I need is a voice vibration. And as I say to them, spirit will travel. Spirit will travel because, and this has been proven to me time and time again, because when I work in the Middle East, for instance, how is it that I can bring through, loved ones who maybe still lived in America or in Europe, but yet I'm working in the Middle East, and people will look at you and go, well, my mum's never visited this, they've never visited us here. Well, clearly they didn't need to, but they have now because, we always say spirit can travel across water. They will go where they need to go. And I think people find that difficult to believe. They find it very hard to believe at times. And it's a little bit of like, just accept that they're still watching over you. And people look at me sometimes and say, well, how do they know what we're up to? They've never visited us and they don't know where we live. How do they know what our house is like when they're describing it? How do they know where the photograph is of them, what they're describing now? And it's like, well, obviously they must have been to visit. They've been to see you. And, where I live, I've lived here now 12 years. And, my mum, unfortunately, never got the chance to visit this house. But I know that she's been. I know that she's here. I know that she described the house to a T to people to say, this is where he is, this is what he's doing, this is what he's got, this is where he's moving things to. And, that's just me as a medium. And I think we all have to accept that spirit go where they needed to be.
I love that. Yeah, I don't think they're hanging around the cemetery. And that's not exciting. I think they have their own work and education to continue, but they can be with us in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Barrie, have you had experiences where you've given a reading and the sitter might be, well, I don't know, but then you get a phone call or email afterwards that you hit the nail right on the head? Any of those stories?
Do you know? Yeah, you do. Sandra, do you know what? I love talking about these because you'll be sat there and you'll be giving somebody a name and you'll be talking about, I don't know, the dad or whatever, and they'll go, no, I can't take the name. And then they'll go home and they'll send you an email and they'll go, do you know what? I've never thought about this, but that was my dad's name. Because sometimes the obvious things we miss out on so much. It's like, because we only talk about mum and dad, sometimes we actually forget what the name is. We almost just refer to them as mum and dad. And there's been situations where, I remember one lady that I met many, many years ago who's now become a very good friend over the years. And I remember meeting her at a demonstration and I was saying, there's an adoption in your family. Somebody's been adopted. Oh, no, they haven't. There's no adoption in my family at all. And lo and behold, the lady at that time was just doing her family tree. And within a matter of weeks, literally weeks, if not days, she come back to me and said, how did you know? How did you know that there was an adoption? And she found the adoption, and it was actually her dad that had been adopted into the family. And he had never declared it to her because he always classed his mum and dad as mum and dad when actually they were his adopted parents. But, you know, it's interesting when you get these sort of things, isn't it? Because they're the sort of things that they almost make you realize that that's what you do it for. You do it so that you find, you know, you help people find a little bit of happiness, or you help them find something that is so unknown, you know. And I've had it, you know, I've had it where a partner will book a booking for their other partner, you know, their husband or wife, and they come and they sit, and you think, you know, they'll talk to you going, no, I don't believe in any of this. No, it's not what I wanted to do. You know, my partner's booked it for me, and lo and behold, you'll give them a reading, they'll go away, and they'll come back, and they'll literally clarify everything word for word. You know, that name there we've found, that person there I found, yeah, I spoke to my mum about that one, my mum knows about that. And you're thinking, right, okay. And it almost turns them a little bit, doesn't it? It moves them from the skeptic side to being, okay, well, there's something, but I'm still not sure. I still want a little bit more proof. And it's funny because when I talk to people, I'll always go, just remember, I'm a skeptical medium. And they'll say, what do you mean by that? And I go, because I fully believe, but I still look for proof, exactly like you do. I want the spirit world to keep proving and proving and proving to me that there is more, there is something else. And, you know, I always describe it a little bit when I'm talking to people. I say, you gain a spiritual greed when you start working with spirit, because you want more. You want them to prove something. You want them to prove this. You want them to start looking at EVP. You want them to start looking at, you know, materialization, apporting objects, looking at trance, looking at physical energy and physical mediumship. And, you know, this all develops over such a spate of time that as mediums, we get very greedy and we want it all to be tomorrow. We want everything now. We want to see spirit. We want to know where they are. We want them to materialize. We want them to take us into a trance state. And I always say to people, in time, it will happen. It's a matter of time. And I got asked the other day about mediumship and paranormal, saying, do you think it's changed over the years? And I think it certainly has. I think the problem is nowadays, when we look at it, people don't want to give it the time that it should have. They don't want to sit like we used to do. And even on paranormal investigations, you know, I remember when I started out, and we would sit in a room for 2 or 3 hours and probably not even say a word to each other. We would just sit there and almost like analyze the room, watch what's happening, watch the temperature, listen for noises. And then afterwards we'd go, right, did you hear that? Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, I heard that when that was mentioned as well. And I noticed the room change at this time. Whereas, you know, people watch a lot of entertainment nowadays, a lot of entertainment programs and movies. And they think as soon as they walk into a room, if it doesn't happen within 5 and 10 minutes, oh no, that, you know, we need to go somewhere else now. This just isn't, it's not happening. This room's got nothing. Well, it's like, but you've not actually given it time to like present itself to you. You've literally walked in and looked around and said, oh, right, let's go somewhere else. And it gets quite frustrating on paranormal events for me, because I always say to people, you know, you must stand still. You must be quiet. You know, we're trying to listen for things that are happening around the room or in the building. And you always end up with somebody that either starts, you know, rattling keys in the pocket, trying to open a sweet in the pocket. They'll have a squeaky shoe, or they'll be stood on a squeaky floorboard. And you're thinking, oh, please, you know, just be quiet for 2 minutes. But you know, I accept that over the years, you know, entertainment programs, media, TV has changed what we do so much, because people watch a show for an hour and they think, oh, blimey, that's everything that happens within an hour on this old building. Well, it isn't actually. What that is, you're watching a makeup of probably 3-4 days worth of filming, all pushed into a 1 hour show. And it doesn't mean to say that it's all happened at the same time, you know, and I've done it, you know, I've done filming before, and I'll always be open with people about this, where I've gone into buildings and we've sat there for hours, absolutely hours, you know, and nothing's happened. Even on a public event, you know, on a paranormal investigation, we've sat and nothing has happened. And I always say to people, don't be disappointed, because what that's shown you is tonight, spirit don't want to play, but tomorrow night might be very different, you know. And And it almost goes to that point of what I call trickery or fakery. What you don't want to happen is on every event something to happen, because then people get very suspicious. They almost start thinking, was that real, or did they create it, or did somebody intentionally jump out or whatever? And again, that plays a huge part, because I think some people that come on investigations think that it is going to be all trickery and fakery and people jumping out and touching them from behind curtains and things.
Right.
And they have to almost leave that at the doorway, and think, actually, what we're going into is something that we don't know what's going to happen. This is a little bit unknown, and what will be, simple as. So I always try and say that to them, anything that you've seen on TV or you've read on the literature to the building, on the write up to the building, it's almost as though you've got to put that to one side, put that history to one side. What we're here for today and tonight is to investigate this building as it stands now.
I want to ask you too, as far as ghosts and buildings and paranormal things, could you explain your thoughts as to, like, if you go into a paranormal investigation, could someplace be haunted? Are there earthbound spirits? Are they called ghosts? Is there a dark side? That whole world coming from a medium.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, it opens up a huge minefield for people, really.
Yes,
and
it does.
Think the first thing that I always say is, remember, we've got a ghost and then we've got a spirit. We know that a ghost is an apparition. It's a video recording in time. It's something that'll happen very repetitively. And, we know that from a ghost, because of how it's formed and how it's almost materialized, that there's no intelligence there, and that could be, I don't know, a Roman soldier that walks through the building at 12 o'clock lunchtime every day and never acknowledges anybody. But then on the other hand, when we're in an old building, what we try and get is a form of intelligence. We try and get an element of communication. And I think, yes, certainly there is a point where spirit will come in visitation. I think they'll look at this, that this was probably their home or their last place of rest, or, this was the place where maybe they was executed, depending on what the building is. Mm-hmm. And that'll be the last signs of recognition. And I always say to people, what we always try and look for is somewhere where there's been almost like a mass explosion of energy. Something's got to have happened that's allowed that spirit to remain there, or that's taken that spirit from that position. Do I believe that we have earthbound spirits? I think that's a really good question, because I think a lot of people get very bemused by this and also very tied up with it. They assume that every spirit that we bring through is earthbound. Well, clearly it's not from a mediumship perspective, because as a medium, when we're giving a reading to people, spirit are in visitation. They're coming in to say, this is the message. There you go. I'm off. I'm leaving you now. I don't need to be here. And I think that works exactly the same on paranormal investigations. I think spirit drop in and drop out. And, if they feel at home there, of course they're going to stay. That's what they knew as home. Maybe they like scaring people. Maybe they like being around the corner and jumping out as a spirit, not a ghost, as a spirit. And maybe that's what they want to continue to do. And we always say, that we can't demand of spirit. We can't force them to do something that they don't want to do. But maybe there is those sort of characters there that are very jovial, that are very comical, that want to keep having a laugh, want to keep frightening people, want to keep banging on the door. You asked an interesting question there about the negative side, shall we call it, because everybody's always fascinated by the negative. They assume that every time we go into a building, it's all going to be bad and evil and nasty, and things are going to happen to you. You shouldn't dabble with things that you don't know, and you shouldn't play with Ouija boards, psychic circles, anything like that. And I always say to people, remember, when we work and when I work, I say to my guides, whoever's looking after me at that moment in time, you need to look after me. You need to make sure that whoever comes through is coming through for a specific reason. And if I feel uncomfortable and actually I think, this is a bit of a character that I don't like, I will almost say to my guides, sorry, don't want that. That's not what we're here for. But it goes back to that point where it's really hard putting a title on those characters, because I don't believe in the word evil. I don't believe that there are evil spirits. I believe that there's spirits out there that are probably mischievous. I believe that there's probably spirits out there that are probably exceptionally grumpy and moody at times, and want a little bit of attention. You know, and certainly if I look at my family members, you know, I had a grandfather that was always probably very miserable, you know, and grumpy, and never really enjoyed his life. Oh. But I wouldn't put a banner on him that said that he was evil. I'd just say he just didn't enjoy his life no matter what. But I think it's that real banner that people try and put on things that, oh, if we bring something through, it's got to be negative, it's got to be evil. And I remember over the years working with many, many mediums, you know, and they used to bring things through like demonic monks. And I used to think, well, that's a total clash of beliefs, really. You know, we're talking of something that's quite dark and demonology with actually something that's extremely religious. Mm-hmm. You know, in reality, would you ever get that? No, well, no, you certainly wouldn't. What you might get is you might get a monk that probably resented what he did, or resented his position, or didn't enjoy his role. But that doesn't mean to say that he was demonic. And I think sometimes, you know, people's imagination when we go into buildings can really run riot.
Yes.
You know, they can really take over, Sandra. And you know, I've done events at a very well-known location in the UK called the Woodchester Mansion. Beautiful, beautiful building. But the interesting thing with it is originally there was a smaller house on the site, but what you see now is what was being rebuilt or redesigned. But actually it was never lived in. And people go into that property and they're going, oh yes, this used to be a bedroom, and this used to be this room, and this used to be this. And you go, and in my mind, I'm thinking, but I know that's not right, because there was never a floor in that building, because it was never finished. Mm. And people almost seem to over-create things. You know, they almost seem to create a little bit of an adventure in the mind, could I say?
Yes.
And I think that's really, it's very easy to do. It's very, very easy to do, because when you go into it, you want to see it as you thought it was, or how it used to be. And remembering that a lot of the stately homes in the UK were family homes. These weren't, these weren't dark places. These were proper family homes, very, very noble homes in some cases. And people have to remember that, you know, and I think, you know, we need to put aside that dark side at the times, you know, and that demonic side, and remember that, you know, a lot of that has only been created by current sort of TV programs, by what we're shown in the media. You know, and there's some films out there, you know, you look at some of the films out there over the years, films like The Exorcist.
Yes.
You know, that really, really portray spirit in a very dark, sinister way. You know, you look at other films, and I always talk about the film Sixth Sense.
Yes.
Sixth Sense, to me, made total sense, because I remember when spirit kept knocking on the door and you'd go, I'm not sure, I don't know whether I want this, and knock on the door, still not sure, I don't know whether I want it. And it almost, you know, put the gruesome side to one side. It was almost spirit saying, look, we're here, we need to talk to you, we need some help, we need you to get a message through for us. And as soon as you accept that, the spirit seems to calm down a little bit. It's almost as though they lose that frustration, because they think, blimey, finally somebody's listening to us, finally somebody's hearing us, finally somebody's taking on board what we want to say. You know, and spirit do that. You know, this is what we found over the years. You know, I remember when I started table tipping or table levitation, you know, and I remember it used to start off really, really quite, I don't want to say aggressive, but very forceful to start off with. But as soon as you started relating to it and going, okay, it's all right, I understand, this is what I'm getting, this is the feeling I'm getting, this is what we're trying to do, the movement would almost go almost like, I don't know, into like almost a lullaby situation, you know, very calm, very, very reserved, very, you know, almost as though it was just gently, almost rocking somebody to sleep. You know, and spirit work like that. You know, you can understand the frustration, can't you? Because it's like, if they're trying to get a message through to me and I'm busy outside in my garden doing something, and I'm busy doing some work, and they're going, we still need to talk to you. And I'm going, yeah, just in a minute. Well, yeah, but we still need to talk to you. Yeah, but just give me a minute. And the spirit world then are almost like, we're determined to get through to him. You know, we need to keep talking to this guy. We need to get these messages through to him. So it does fascinate me, you know, but I think we really, really need to watch how we put a branding on Spirit, how we put a title on Spirit, and say, actually, it's the spirit world. We know that they're there to look after us and to prove that existence exists, but also we know that they have a form of intelligence. So, treat them with respect.
Absolutely.
Talk to them with respect. Yeah, and some people don't, though, do they? They intentionally go out there to almost, how do we say this? To almost wind Spirit up, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say to them, remember, this was once a living person. This was somebody that has emotions, they have feelings, they want to be respected. Think about it in terms of you. How would you want to be spoken to if you were in the spirit world trying to come through to prove something or to give a message? You'd want to be respected.
Oh, Barrie.
And I always try and work with spirit like that.
That's wonderful advice. I remember years ago, I had a huge fear of people. I didn't like to check into a hotel. I didn't like to call people on the phone, to place an order. And then I had ended up taking a course that pretty simply said, who you're looking at is just another you, another person. Yeah. And so I'm getting at that our friends in the spirit world, treat them with respect. It's just another you. And someday we will be there. Certainly.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And how would we like to be spoken to?
Sure.
I wouldn't want to be chastised and humiliated in the spirit world. I'd actually want to be spoken to with an element of respect and an element of, intelligence, I suppose.
Yeah, just talk to me. I notice on your Facebook page, there's a few pictures of you with the great Colin Fry. Can you tell us about your relationship with him, your friendship?
Yeah, Colin was a very dear friend of mine, and I've known him for a long, long time. And we used to exchange stories and little messages together, and over the years we met up numerous times, and he always wanted me to work with him. And I always used to say to Colin, I'm not good enough. And he'd say, yes, you are. And he'd say, no, I'm not. I'm not good enough, Colin. And bless him, I remember towards the latter years when he started getting ill, he rang me up once, and he was doing a show not far from my home. And he just rang me up and he says, are you coming tonight? And I said, yeah, I am. You asked me to come along. He said, oh, good. And I said, why are you asking? He said, no reason at all. He said, I'll see you when you get to the show. And I remember when I got to the show and he said, I'm glad you've come. And I said, why? He said, because you're doing the stage with me tonight.
Oh, no.
And I said to him, you are kidding. Yeah, that was it. Because he knew that if he'd have told me before, I would have said no.
Right.
And I remember, he said, yes, you're doing the stage with me tonight. And I said, all right, great. Thanks, Colin. And that's shortly after that was when he told me that he was ill and that he was struggling. And obviously then on his final tour, I supported him with quite a lot of his public demonstrations. And it was hard to see with Colin because he was a man of such great sort of stature, and it's interesting because there is a photo, and I think it's on my Facebook, and Colin and me were obviously exceptionally different heights. There's a photo of me actually crouching down to have a photo with him on one of them. And I always remember, and it was quite funny, one of the stage shows that we did, there's actually a picture of me, and I'm closer to the camera and Colin's further away. And I think I've actually got my hand out, and it almost looks as though he stood in the palm of my hand when you look at it. But, he was a great man, and he was so spiritual with his ways, Colin was, and I remember I used to ring him up and he used to go, right, who's upset you now? And I used to tell him and he used to go, that's okay, you've told me now, just go and carry on your pathway now. And he used to be so funny with it because I always felt at times as though he was almost giving you a little bit of a pat on the head to say, don't worry, everything's okay now, you just carry on your road, and it was very difficult dealing with him when he was ill,
I'm sure.
because he still tried to carry on. He still wanted to carry on for the people. He wanted to keep delivering the messages, and I remember a few shows that I did with him, and we used to stand behind, back of the curtain before we went out on stage, and he'd say, I don't think I can do it tonight. And he'd go, you'll be all right, you'll be okay. And he'd say, I can't do it. And yet, as soon as he went out there, it was almost as though he was overtaken by another energy.
Right.
And it was like the Colin who behind the curtain was very ill and frail almost disappeared. And it was like, right, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to deliver the message. And you could almost see like his energy starting to evolve. It almost seemed to bloom with him. and then it got very difficult as he became weaker, I suppose. And I think probably eventually, the spirit world thought we need to withdraw and we need to let this man have his time now, and I've got some lovely messages that Colin sent to me, especially in his final few days. Thank you for being a friend, and thank you for being there when he needed me, etc. And I think it's lovely that I've got those that I can look back on, and I've got a couple of items that were Colin's that will always stay with me and will always be part of me now, and they're personal effects, but he was a great man to work with. I need to say that, he was a pleasant man to work with. We had some laughs. We had laughs on and off camera. We loved it, and whenever one of us was on stage, the other one was always in the dressing room listening to it. And, it was nice knowing that, he'd come out of his dressing room and he'd nod at you just to say, well done, you've done a good job there. And you used to think, oh, thank you, I needed to hear that. And vice versa, Colin liked to hear that after doing the demonstration as well. And I remember, both of us were probably very similar, because I always come off of a stage or a platform and I always say to the spirit world, I could have done better for you there. I could have delivered something better. And Colin used to do the same, and I think probably that's one of the things we had in common. We used to almost come off of doing a demonstration and almost beat ourselves up to say we could have done it better. But, I think that's a good thing, because I think for the spirit world, I think they look at that and think, you know what, they know that they can do better next time. What we'll do is we'll help them do better next time, because I don't think you ever get to that point where you're 100% confident, you know everything 100%. And I think that's good. I always joke with people. Yeah, I always joke with people, Sandra, before I go out on a platform or a stage, if somebody said to me in those 5 minutes before I can go out, you can get in your car and go home, the nerves inside of me would say, get in the car and go home.
I know that feeling, not from that, but just from other things. And I want to ask you too, did Colin was a great physical medium as well as a mental medium, evidential medium. And my passion currently, as we talk here in 2018, is to study the world of trance and physical mediumship. Yeah. And I love it. But did Colin ever share from those days some of the stories from being a physical medium? I mean, I know that's a giant question.
Yeah. But no, he did. And I mean, I've got to say, I agree with you. My passion now is trance and physical. That's what I'm sitting for now, and we have a regular group that sits. And
Wonderful.
Colin used to portray a lot of the stories. He used to tell us, he used to tell me stories about how the spirit world had he'd be tied up, but they'd literally undress him in his chair and leave him tied up still, or they would take him out the room and put him into another room, And I remember, when Colin passed, there was a big picture of Magnus that he had, and Magnus was Colin's guide. And the picture, the family asked me to look after it for a while, and I did. And I actually brought it home and put it in my consultation room where I see my clients. Mm-hmm. And it was so hysterical, because every time I used to come downstairs, Colin used to be stood in the doorway. And in the end, I said to the family, you've got to take the picture back, because I said, I can't get him out of my house. It was almost as though it was like, that's where I'm staying put. But he used to share some fantastic stories with it, about, like I say, how the spirit world used to take him through a locked door and put him in another room and leave him lying on the floor while all the sitters were still in the locked room. Lo and behold, they'd turn the light on and no Colin, because he'd been taken outside the room. I remember seeing his psychic trumpet, and his psychic trumpet was so battered and bruised over the years because it had been dropped, it had been fallen, it had been passed around the circle, and it was lovely, and he always kept that for years and years and years. He kept it, and it was always in a lovely wooden box on the side. And I remember he showed me once some hands that they'd had materialize in the circle, and they'd actually managed to cast the hands into a cast. So you could see these hands that had actually materialized, and the way that they'd then gone into almost like a quick setting sort of, I don't know what you call it, quick setting resin or cement of some kind. But the hands had formed, and it was phenomenal, watching it, thinking, this is true physical mediumship. This is what we need to get back to nowadays. And, we need to get people to sit for physical again. That's my view.
Yeah, I'm totally aligned in that. I've had a few episodes with Scott Milligan, who's a present day physical medium.
Yeah,
and that's where I met our friend Kaz.
Fantastic medium.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott is a fantastic medium and a very, very dear friend. Scott and Darren, I think they're,
yes.
He is such a modern day, how do we put this? A modern day medium that really wants to show people how to do it and do it properly.
Yes. And I'm excited. He's coming to America in September to be a speaker
Brilliant.
At the Afterlife Symposium. And for anyone who this might be their first show with us, you might not have heard the term physical medium before, but a physical medium is someone who in a circle in a darkened room most often can produce a substance called ectoplasm, and our loved ones can actually walk through it and become real again. And as Ghostbusters and science fiction as this sounds, it's one of those things where to witness it, to experience it, it's like no other. And then I actually found out, you might have heard Barry or know this story, but Dan Aykroyd, who wrote Ghostbusters, his great-grandfather was actually involved with spiritualism and held seances in their home. And so young Dan would hear stories about the past, and that's how, Ghostbusters came about. So it's not green slimy stuff, but it is I feel a miraculous thing. And Scott Milligan and others are really trying to get this out in the world again, have people start sitting on behalf of spirit in circles and see what happens. So I find it very exciting. Very exciting.
It's interesting because I'm actually doing a seance with Scott on Friday. He's actually coming to my local sort of town.
Wonderful.
So he's doing the physical seance on the Friday night, and then obviously he's at the workshop over the weekend.
Ah, great. It's fantastic. Well, Barry, we just have a few minutes left. Is there any question that I haven't asked you that I should, or something you're very passionate about that you want to share, or even if you just reach into your own heart and just any words that need to be spoken?
I think that's a lovely way to end the interview, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think all I would say to people is, remember that spirit comes from the heart, not from the head, not from the ego. You have to work with them on an emotional basis, and they'll never let you down. They never have me over the years, even though at times I think they have. And often I look back and I go, I'm sorry, I know you didn't. I know you were there, but I just didn't hear you at that moment. And just accept that they're there when we need. And, the way that I always say it is spirit are only a thought away.
Oh, beautiful.
My pleasure.
Beautiful. And do you welcome people getting in touch with you, or do you still do telephone readings and people can contact you?
Not a problem at all, Sandra. If people want to get in touch with us, you can get in touch with us via the website, which is www.barriejohn.com, or you can get in touch with us via Facebook, which again, look for Barrie John, and you'll find us on there. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, as I said, we're on Facebook. But by all means, drop us a message if you've got any questions or you want to book a reading. Not a problem. Just get in touch.
Oh, thank you so much. I have been waiting a long time to get to chat with you, and I know today's the perfect day. And I'm grateful to our mutual friend Kaz. And I just think that you and I will have more of a friendship because I know we're both into the same thing. And and Barry, really thank you though from all the people that may not have really acknowledged the difference that you've made in their life. It's interesting. I hear from people that have had near-death experiences, one common denominator is when they have their life review, they see the difference they've made in the world and they see the ripple effect. And I just know in my heart that you have made a profound difference in so much healing and giving people hope and faith and comfort. So thank you from all the voices that haven't verbalized it, but a huge thank you for who you are for the people on earth.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope we speak again soon.
Yeah, I know we will. And for our listener, thank you for spending the past hour with us. As a reminder, Barry's website is www.barriejohn.com. Our home base for this show is WeDon'tDieRadio.com. This is now episode 256. Yes, we have 256 hours of really incredible interviews and conversations about not only why the afterlife is real, but also how to have a powerful life. And we're here to help support you in having your dreams fulfilled. We're here to help you through grief and just to have a great life. And if you're interested in that whole kind of thing, feel free to join our Facebook group. On Facebook, you just type in We Don't Die Listeners, and it is a closed group, so you can share your heart out. We are here to support. And I did mention that Afterlife Symposium. To find out more about that, there's, I think, almost 40 different speakers that will be in Scottsdale, Arizona, September 13th through 16th. Go to afterlifesymposium.org. And even if you can't join us, just check out some of the speakers, because there's some people really up to some great things through science, through medicine, through mediumship, and all different aspects, really about the continuity of life even after our body disappears. So in closing, my name is Sandra Chamberlain, and I'm always delighted to be your host on We Don't Die Radio. And I do believe that life is an education for the soul, and that your life here on earth is important. And remember what Barrie said, spirit is only a thought away. You don't have to go visit a medium to connect with them, and you can simply take a few minutes and clear your mind and have love in your heart and reconnect with your loved ones. So I want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.